that we can place it. But the question is how you're going to make this as dynamic. Okay. So we will be having multiple SVG tags. How we are going to import this. Okay, I'll do one thing. This SVG tag for now, I will skip it out. So my expectation is to show multiple card items on this page. Okay. Let us say if at all I have multiple card items, something like this. Okay, assume like there are 4 cards which I want to show. This is how it is coming on the page. Okay, but here if you see our card items are into the row wise, but right now we are coming it as column wise. At the same time, I think we can still work on reducing the width of this, say some 15. Okay, still it can be reduced. Either width is not working. This is the container. This is the reasons. Okay, under that individual card. Okay, every guy has separate width here. Let me reload it. This is how it is coming. 13 is too much small. Okay, this is how the cards, but I want to make these cards to be displayed on the single page and what we can go for. So right now, the more reasons what I can make is this guy as display flex. Okay. And when it is display flex, by default, all the children items will be into the row wise content, isn't it? But if I only want to give the margin for this, so why the reason the margin is not made? Okay. Say some 20 pixel. Okay, the margin is for the child elements, right? This is how the cards are getting rendered on the page. And now we need to have the different content for every other part. But now the question is like, what if I have right now you have 4 elements, you're just copying the content and pasting the content multiple times, copying the code and copying the card and adding the content multiple times. But my expectation is, what if it has to be dynamic? Okay. At the same time, what if like we have 100 cards to be displayed? Do we think that we are going to copy and paste it for multiple times? No. So what we are going to do, we can make it as a dynamic content, isn't it? So how you're going to make this as a dynamic content? In order to make this as dynamic, what we are going to do is let us write a piece of array of data and we see how you're going to iterate over the array within the JSX and how you're going to render the content on the page. Okay, so this is the concept, what we call it as data binding. So anyone having any questions before we go? No, right? I see you're seeing the CSS. Okay. Ramya, you're saying that gap property. Yes, Ramya, we can even make use of the gap property. I'm just making use of the margin, but yeah, if as we are using it as a display fix, right? We can go for that. Okay. Now the question is, let us say, for example, I'm going to have a variable. Okay, say some user name is equal to say something called as say some Tina. Okay, this is a simple JavaScript variable. So anytime you're going to create a component, right? So the syntax, what we have is, let's create a running. Oops. Okay, so my expectation is, I mean, how the component syntax is going to have. So when I say component definition, which is functional. Okay, so how you're going to give the component definition here? We simply say it as a function, right? So what is the component name? We are going to put this open and close braces, and this is how it is. Now we are going to say that every component has to return a function, and that function has to uh, return again the fragment. Okay, markup with a fragment, isn't it? So this is what the syntax is. Now, what is the other data we are going to write inside the function is the piece of variables or the methods or the classes or the objects which you want to keep it inside the component. Those all will be defined over here. So this is what the place where we are going to use the methods or the variable declarations or the classes or the we can say something called as hooks, okay, etc. We'll talk about all of this. Now, whatever the JavaScript logic or the variables or the methods, anything what you define for the component that we are going to define inside the component or here itself. Okay, so now in our expectation and our requirement, we want a variable name, something called as username. This is how I'm declaring, where username is equal to Tina. Now, let us see this concept of something called as data binding. So, what is the concept of data binding? Data binding is the concept of automatically accessing the data of the JavaScript into the HTML or the markup. We call it as a data binding. Okay, automatically accessing the data of the JavaScript. Either it could be a variable, either it could be a method, either anything, any JSON data, whatever the data you have, we could able to get this data directly on the HTML or on the what do you say, markup, we can say. How you're going to do this? For example, I would like to say under the more reasons, I would like to say uh, okay, for example, I will comment out this part. Let's remove this part, make it later again. Okay, so our expectation is I would like to access this variable like this, right? So this is the empty fragment what I'm keeping, and I would like to say your name is Okay, my expectation is this username has to be shown over here. Now let us save it. Come back here. This is how it is showing. Your username is going to be username. That's it. Isn't it? It's not showing the data here. Now our expectation is I have to show this username. If it is the plain JavaScript, what we used to do is we used to say something called a span. Isn't it? We used to take this something called a span. Now, under this span, how you're going to keep this data? We always say document dot query selector, something called a span dot inner text is equal to username. Now, if I ask you a question, line number 50, line number 5, why the reason you're keeping this line number 5? The reason is directly this username, whatever we have within our JavaScript code, that cannot be accessible directly to the HTML. We need to manually take this data, add it onto the UI corresponding HTML element. That is what we call it as a DHTML. But if we remember, by using this feature, which we call it as data binding, we can directly make use of the JavaScript data into the UI. You don't need to make use of this guy. That is what we said. What React has done is there is a bridge between the HTML and JavaScript, which it has created. JavaScript has created the bridge between the HTML and the JavaScript code. Okay, so what does that bridge means? Bridge means accessing this JavaScript variables directly within the HTML element itself. So that is what he has done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the username. I'm going to keep it over here itself. Now, when I'm come back here, reload, but still the username has not come. So anytime you want to access the variables, anytime you want to evaluate anything within your markup, just keep it within the open and close brace, which we call it as an expression. Okay. Now, once you keep this guy within the expression, now once we reload the page, do you see the value Tina got updated? Yes. So this is what we call it as a two-way data binding. Okay, so what do you mean by two-way data binding here? Using your two-way data binding, sorry, what data binding is the concept. One-way data binding, what I'm discussing about. So this is called as one-way data binding. So one-way data binding is getting the data from the JavaScript to the HTML content directly without using any type of DHTML operations. Okay, so you see, this is a variable. That is how I could able to that in the HTML you wanted, directly use a username. There is a bridge between the HTML and JavaScript, which is being created by the React. Now you see that, post JavaScript, how the HTML could able to access it. That is how React is taking care. And internally, the virtual DOM is the one which is coming into the picture. If you remember, we discussed about this, right? What JavaScript does is, what React is doing is, anytime you want to add any data on the UI, they directly take the copy of the DOM into the, they take a copy of the actual DOM, they do the changes on the actual DOM, the copied version, and finally, he takes this data and put into the UI or put into the actual DOM, right? So that is what the feature, or that is what the concept your React is following. So any changes what you are doing inside the DOM, it's not going to do within the main DOM. Instead, it does into the virtual DOM, and finally, the virtual DOM will be updated on the UI. Okay, so now I'm going to access this data. You see, username is going to come. Okay, this is a normal variable. What if, like I say, user details is a piece of JSON object, say some name, say some fresh. Okay, I say some country, under that say some code, IND. Okay, I say name, which is going to be India. Assume like this is what I have. Now I want to access this country name into this. Yes, we can do. I can say country name is within the expression. I say user details dot country dot name. Okay, now let's save this, come back out here, and you see this is how you could able to access. So this is how the data being declared within your JavaScript can be directly accessible within your HTML. This is the reason. This is called as the data binding. One-way data binding we are looking into. There is a concept of two-way data binding also. which is the data which has been defined in a HTML can be accessible to the UI. That we'll see later because we need to understand what do you mean by hooks for understanding that. Okay. Now, yeah, so this is how I could able to get the data. We are already completed this part one-way data binding. Exactly. So that we have done, right? So I'm just revising this, Ashutosh, just to show this iterating over the content. Okay. So before going with the iteration, I would like to show this data binding once again. Vaishnavi, I don't understand. Vaishnavi, as you have missed the previous classes, right? So this is the gap what you have. Can you tell me what piece of code you didn't understand? So what is the concept of binding? Data binding is the concept of getting the data what we are declaring within the JavaScript to the HTML. We call it as a data binding. Am I clear on this? And how I'm binding this guy? Just keeping within the expression. And whenever we keep something called as any piece of code which is between this open and close flower braces, that we are going to call it as a expression which is going to be evaluated. And once it is evaluating, in the sense now you say, for example, if I don't keep this flower brace, if I don't keep this flower brace, do you think is it is evaluating? No, whatever the data we are showing, that is being shown as it is. Am I clear? If you don't keep it within the flower brace, it is just adding the content as it is, whatever the way you have given. Now, if I keep it within the open and close brace, what it is going to happen? It is going to become like an expression. And what do you mean by an expression? Expression indicates or it lets the React know that user want to evaluate something. What is evaluation here? User is expecting the user details under country, under name. This is how it is going to retrieve it. And now it is going to show it on the page. I'm clear with your question now. Okay, now this is what I have. For example, if I have an array of data, I say where user names or else product details. I'll say product names, I will say, and I'm going to say something called as array of the laptop is the product name, say some mobile is the product name, say some toys is the product name, uh, say some pen is the product name. Okay, these are the list of product names what we have. My expectation is I would like to say the product name one. Okay, how I'm going to evaluate this? I'll simply say product names of 0. Okay, I would like to get the first product to the page. How I'm going to get? This is how it is. Now, if at all I want to get the second product and the third product, this is going to be 1. This is going to be 2. Okay, this is how it is getting rendered. Okay, but my expectation is what if like I have like 100 products within the array? Do you think we could able to retrieve like this? No. So what we need to do we generally write it in JavaScript? If at all I have to iterate over the array, are we going to write a looping iteration here? Yes. So we could able to iterate the array of values even within your markup also. Markup is even within your HTML. So how you're going to do? I'm going to do something like an expression. What do you mean by expression? Expression in the sense evaluation. Now, if I say something called as product names of 0, so it is evaluating and it is showing the product name something called as laptop here. Okay, so guys, put some extra attention here because this iteration is the one which we are going to do. I mean, without the map method or without the iteration, maximum we won't be writing any piece of components. Okay, this is very much important. So put some extra attention. Now, my expectation is if I keep this product names of 0, automatically you're getting it. If my expectation is I want to go to each and every value within the array, how you're going to do that? So for that, what I say is I'll simply say product names dot map method. Okay, product name dot map method. So under this product date, under this product names dot map method, I'm going to give a expression something like this. So if you remember, we have this dot map method, which we have already revised inside your ECMA 6. What this map method will do, it will take it will go to each and every value within the array. We are going to apply a functionality on the top of every value within the array. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. So product names dot map, and here you can simply return the markup. Okay, I simply say, for example, our expectation is there is something called as UL tag. Okay, there is a UL tag. Under that, our expectation, this is the UL tag which is getting closed. Under that, there is something called as LI like this. And under this LI, my expectation is I want to show the item. And what is this item? Each and every value, what you're iterating here. Understand this piece of code, which is from line number 21 to 25, guys. Let me know if you have questions. Now, when I'm saving this, now when I'm coming back over here, do you see we could able to iterate over the array and we could able to show the data back onto the page? Yes. So this is what mandatorily and very frequently we are going to use this method, guys. So what I'm doing here, what is your array name? This is your array name. I am doing something called as dot map method. Yes. Under that, obviously, we are going to have each and every value. First time item will be laptop. Second time item will be mobile, something like this. Okay. And under that, I'm putting this callback method, what I'm going to say, which is your fragment. The fragment has to be written here, which is under the li tag. Now, when I save this, this is how it is getting entered. Okay, what if I have array of objects? For example, I say something like this. Instead of directly the names here, what if we are going to have, instead of this, I'm going to keep an object where the product name is something called as laptop. Okay, I'll say something called as price is, say, dollar of 123. Okay, let us keep it for multiple products. Okay, like this. Now here is a laptop, say some mobile, um, something like this. Okay, now our expectation is iterate this product details and show me the product name and the price. Now what I can do here is under this, I can say some li tag. Okay, under the li tag, I would like to say some div, okay, which is the product name, and the name is item dot name. In the same way, I can say some price, which is item dot price. Simple. Now, when I save this guy, come back over here, reload the page. So we could able to iterate over the array of objects, and we could able to show the data back to the user. This is what your data binding concept is. Okay, and the data binding along with iteration over the array of values. So see the simplicity. I mean, this is what the advantage we are going to get, guys. Now, I mean, if at all, I mean, we are not at all making use of any type of DOM operations here. Either it is the conditions, either it is the variables, either it is the iteration, either it is the looping. I mean, anything, whatever you wanted, directly you do it on HTML. Earlier, we were doing, I mean, there is no concept of accessing the JavaScript data into the HTML. So manually, we were iterating over each and every value within the array and you're getting the data and adding onto the page. That is what we were doing manually. But now I don't need to do that. It is automatically, it is going to get the data from the JavaScript to the UI or to the HTML. So any questions, anyone with this map method or iterating over the values? Anyone? All good? Yes, no? Ashutosh, sir, got it. Others? Okay, Sudhakar. Sir, is that we have to return fragment and keep all the tags of single components in this markup? You have just typed so instead main markup and deleting it. You changed it ally tag, so nested mark is also possible. Obviously, right? When we say so, one simple thing what we discussed to Sudhakar is what is the rule of a component? What is the rules of your JSX is whatever the markup we are returning, that markup has to be fragmented. What do you mean by fragment? Fragment means keep it within the open tag and the close tag. Either you give the name of the tag or you skip the name of the tag. That is not at all a problem. Only thing is any element whatever you're giving within your JSX should be having a parent and the child. I mean, sorry, opening and the closing tag. That's it. Without opening and closing, it's not going to make an. It's not going to get executed. At the same time, we even have to have this child elements also has to be, I mean, any element, whatever we are using, every element within the JSX should be having a opening tag and the closing tag. At the same time, all the child elements, whatever we are returning from the JSX or whatever we are returning from the component, those has to be inside one single element. We cannot return multiple elements here. Okay, for example, if you say, I am removing this. Now, if I say div, okay, I say hello. This is fine. This is a valid statement. Now I say div. Okay, I'll say test. This is not valid. Why so? You're returning multiple elements from this component. That is the reason you bind it into another tag or you bind it within the empty tag also. Okay, there is a rule what we have within your JSX. Did that answer your question, Sudhakar? Got it. Okay. Now my expectation is I don't want to go with this array of student name or etc. Instead, can we render this card details here? Okay. Now I'm going to take out this card details and I'm just keeping this over here. Okay, this is your actual card details, and this is how it is getting rendered data. Now, our expectation is we don't want to make use of for loop here. Instead, what I can do is let's make a JSON object out of this. Now, I say var more reasons is equal to an array. Okay, under that, I'm going to create a object. Under that, I'm going to say some name. What is the name of this guy? Okay, sorry. Instead of name, it should be title, right? It should be card title, which we say enjoy on your TV. Okay, and what is the text here? Card text. The text is this guy. Okay, like this, we are going to have multiple card items, multiple card more reasons. Okay, let us get those content also here. Is this. Okay, so now once we come back here, now we have the array of data ready here. Now our expectation is we don't want to repeat this HTML content. So I'm removing all of this HTML like this. Okay. Now, our expectation is this complete div guy along with this card element. This is the from line number 26 to line number 33. It has to get repeated or it has to get iterated. So what we are going to do, I'm going to keep an expression. Okay, and what is the array that we want to iterate here? I simply say more reasons. Okay, dot map is the method which is going to take a callback, something like this, isn't it? Now under this item, so every time we are going to get the say something called as reason. Okay, under the more reason, when I'm iterating, I'm treating each and every object within the array as one individual reason object. Okay, under that, I'm going to take out this markup and we are going to place this over here. Okay, now why this red symbol here, which indicates that you are not making use of this guy. So what I'm going to say is, yeah. So we are not making use of this reason guy. So what this guy will be, instead of enjoy your TV, I say reason dot, what was that? Name is the one, title is the one what we have given. And this guy will be reason dot text. And this also has to be evaluated. That's it. Okay. Now when we save this guy, when we come back to the page here, do you see it is getting iterated and been shown over here? Yes. I think we can decrease this font size of this. More reasons, font size. Okay. So this is how we could able to render the content, guys. Any questions up to here? In real time, will they use the database to render the card content or will we use JSON object? So Ganesh, if we see here, right, in the real time, obviously it is JSON is the one what we are going to have it. Okay, for example, this is the one what I'm going to make it as live. And if you see, when we are going to make it as live, the line from 24 to line number 39, which is actually rendering the content, is not at all going to change. Okay, it is not at all going to be changed. Then how it is going to be dynamic? This is the piece of code which is going to be changed. Okay, if you guys remember, like when you guys would have understanding the JavaScript piece of code, you know that how you're going to get the dynamic data over here. In order to get the dynamic data onto the page, we will be making use of the Ajax concept, right? So what is the concept of Ajax? Now, what I do is the only thing missing is instead of this array of values, we have to make the dynamic data. Dynamically, we have to hit the web service. Okay, as we know, your UI cannot hit the I mean, your UI cannot hit the database directly. There is no driver from which using your UI we could able to hit it. Then what we are going to do? We are going to hit the web service and that web service internally will go to the database and it is going to fetch the data. That is the architecture, right? UI always interacts with the web server. Web server will put a request to the database. From the database, we are going to get the data and we are going to show it on the page. Okay, that is what happens. So any questions up to this? Hope you're clear. Hope you're clear, Ganesh, right? In future, I'm not going to hard code this. We are going to replace this and we are going to render that. But again, the reason why I'm not showing that content is, or else, for example, how you have to implement the Axios here. I want to hit an API and I want to render the content. Let us say fake API store. Okay, you know that, right? Fake API store is the one which is sample web service we can make use. This is the one product data. I will even show you how do we create our own web services. Okay, right now, assume like this is one of the web service. Now our expectation is how do you hit this guy and how you're going to get the data? Very simple. What we can do is we can simply say either you can use the fetch method or I can simply say Axios. Okay, Axios.get method. We can provide the URL and we can say then method like this. You're going to get the response. And how you're going to get this? Console.log response. Simple. Okay, this is how you're going to hit the data and you're going to get it. But now the question is how you're going to make use of this import. What I can do, go to your application. I can simply say npm install Axios. Okay, so anytime any new module has to be installed, has to be any module if you want to inject into your application, just npm install that guy, start making use of that. Okay, oh my God, why the reason I made an exit? npm start. Sorry, npm run dev because we're using white, right? If it is React scripts, we would have done this npm run, sorry, npm start, but here we are using the white as a bundler. So this is the command what it has given. Once I come back and reload the page, reload this, go to console. It is saying that Axis is not defined. Why the reason? You just install the Axios, but do I need to include this guy? Yes, I can say import Axios from Axios. Now, when we say this, when we come back here, you see this is how it is hitting, and you see this is what the data we are responding at getting. We are getting the data from the server. Okay. Now, okay, this is the data what we are getting. Can I show this data on the page? Okay, on the console, it is working super fine. But what if I would like to show it on the page? Okay, now when I'm doing this data binding, there are some limitations here, guys. Let me show that limitations. For example, I would like to say where user name. Okay, username is equal to Mr. Raj. Okay, and I would like to show the username on the page. Uh, Let me keep this guy in a fragment like this. Now I will say some div here. Username is expression user. Okay, now let us save this guy, come back, and if we see what is the username, Mr. Raj is coming super fine. Okay, now I will say something called as where user age, which is something called as say some 20. How you're going to inject this data? I say to age, which is user age. Come back and you see 20 is the one which is coming. Super fine. Now I say something called as where is fee paid equal to something called as true. Now I would like to render this data on the UI. Okay, fee paid is like this. Now when I save this, come back, you see, could I able to get this data? Obviously no. Why the reason? We couldn't able to bind any type of Boolean data directly onto the UI. So this is the limitation what you have within your React.js. Okay. So why the reason I couldn't able to get the true or false onto the page? The true or false is a Boolean value. Any Boolean value cannot be binded directly onto the UI. Then what if like I want to show that you convert into string? Okay, then I can say that this fee paid dot to string. I can do this, right? So when I say to string, now once you come back, you see this data is going to come. So this is one of the thumb rule what we have while you're doing the data binding in your React. We couldn't able to bind the Boolean data directly onto the page. Point number one. And the other value is, for example, I say where country details is it going to be a JSON object. Under that, what is the country called as India and the like this. Okay. Now my expectation is I would like to show the country details directly onto the page.